let's hear it for Sunil, principal engineer on the what? No,
something.
Lord of the Squirrels. Lord of the Squirrels.
The official title is Lord of the Squirrels.
And Kate is the engineering manager on the team. The team's been growing a lot. The team has been growing a lot. Tell me about what's been happening this year, the year of the agents. What has happened this year?
So I like all my references to be boomer references. So anyone here played Age of Empires? Yeah? Okay, so you know that when you start a game in Age of Empires, you take that little priest dude, the Wolololo guy, and he walks the landscape. He removes the fog of war. And it feels like that's what the last year has been in the agents landscape. We now know the use cases people are using it for. It looks like it's finding PMF with like coding agents, research, and like customer support. And we know who the customers are. And I'm quite happy the API is starting to stabilize, but it feels like the landscape has cleared. So the second thing we did is, the smartest thing I did is we have hired people smarter than me on the team. It's now Kate's headache. And the rest of the team is in the UK. They're incredible. Naresh and Matt and Steve. Esteve Yames is his actual, he's Spanish, but he's Steve James, but his real name is Esteve Yames. I get a kick off that every time. And a number of things have happened. So we know what we want to invest in. So Matt, for example, spends time not just in making MCP inside agents better, but he works directly with the MCP team with Anthropic too. Because they're a bunch of Python programmers, we're trying to show them how to write JavaScript. We're trying to fix the TypeScript SDK one PR at a time. I'd mentioned this to you. One of the nice things about our agents SDK is that we want to play well with others. While there are many great agent frameworks out there like the AI SDK and LangChain and Mastra, etc., we want all of those things to run inside the execution host that our agents SDK do. There are durable objects that spin up across the planet. And we plan on doubling down on that, doing way more. By the way, shout out to Dom, who's here, who accepted all my PRs to make the OpenAI Agents SDK work on Cloudflare. It was a lot of fun. It's also how we built the phone call demo. That the server for that is 40 lines of code to be able to have an agent that you can make phone calls to. So fun. So that's kind of what the year has been like. We now have a real team. Kate makes sure that we actually build and deliver stuff, and we build and deliver stuff that people want, instead of me saying, hey, I think this might be a good idea. What about you? What do you think about the last year?
Well, it's been quite a journey, I think, picking up the library that was, well, he was the one who was working on it for like 2 months. It was a crazy idea. They were like, okay, Sunil, go run with it. And he's like, okay, I've got it. And so at some point that this became a team is a huge achievement, but also is a great indicator that there is space right now for this and people actually build agents. Because before, agent, what is agent? It's workflow, or is it a cron job, or how can I use it? Now, as he rightfully said, we see customer support agents, we see personal assistants. There's a bunch of use cases. Pretty much in any software company right now, there is a team or at least one person who is building their agent in whatever shape or form it is. And I think that's like a massive achievement, not for us as a team, but for us as an industry to finally find that product market fit. Because I think it was a very daunting journey to get there. But yeah, there's lots of cool things we're working on, and I can't wait for you guys to try that.
Let's leak a little bit. Can we leak? We can leak a little bit of the roadmap.
Yeah.
Can we do that?
Yeah,
it's okay.
We can talk about the roadmap.
All right. What's going on? What's happening? What's coming up?
I think we are happy with like the base agent class. We are doing. We are not happy with the base agent class. Yeah. We have interesting experiments that we are going to invest more in. So, for example, code mode. I don't know if you folks know what code mode is. It's a thing we are doing where instead of having this back and forth with tool calls with the LLM, we ask the LLM first to generate a whole bunch of code based on the task, and we run it in little sandboxed environments. Anthropic actually just put out, we were speaking to Anthropic and they kind of gave us the little idea and we ran with it. And Cloudflare has this tech called dynamic isolates that let you run it in a very safe, sandboxed way, and you can spin up millions of them, etc. So I think we're going to invest more in code mode and make it like actually really good. And fun fact, hopefully by next week I've shipped it. I have the PR open. Code mode will be runtime agnostic. You'll be able to run it on Vercel, Fly.io, wherever your favorite purveyor of JavaScript runtimes, just go and it's not going to be Cloudflare specific tech. Speaking of which, the other thing we're doing is we are taking pieces of the agents SDK and making them not Cloudflare specific either. So for example, our MCP server is still based on a durable object, but we have a new version which is just a serverless function that you can run again on any JavaScript runtime. People really like that because durable objects kind of break people's brain, and just making it a function is super nice. The other biggish thing I think we are going to do is, again, we are not in the business of making an agents framework, but we do want to start giving primitives for coordinating like millions of these agents around, especially because they're durable objects that can live across the planet, not in a single process, so to speak. So I guess we're going to make an agent framework for that, but it'll still run other people's code inside it. The other big thing we're doing is, right now, Agents is a library that works in the Cloudflare Workers ecosystem. So everybody knows Workers. You make a wrangler.json file, you spit out some code. I think we're going to try to flip that around. Because we have the nice package name, we want to know what NPX package NPX agents create, NPX agents dev, and what NPX agents deploy might look like. And how do you approach it from a agent first experience? Like, should NPX agents dev spin up Cloud code instead of you doing it yourself? Like, can we ship the development environment directly in the thing? Can we have Cloudflare agents that write their own code and like restart themselves? So we have a whole bunch of ideas. I haven't even gotten this past the product people yet. I think they might be hearing it for the first time now on stage while I'm saying these things. Did I cover it? Do we have other things we're working on?
Yeah, I mean, what else? We're trying to figure out what is really agent to agent interactions look like. I think we have a very good understanding at this point what it's supposed to be like. And it's not just, let's say, the agent to agent first was introduced in this concept of deep research, where you give it a task, it goes away, it spins up sub-agents and it does some work and then it comes back to you. So I think we are toying right now with this concept on a much deeper level, and we're trying to figure out how and where this can be applicable, but also how do we give this coding infrastructure to the user so they can do a bunch of their own agents and sub-agents without acquiring the PhD in agents framework. That's a big thing. I think the other thing is developer experience. I think there's lots of different things out there, and the thing that differentiates is how quickly can you spin it up and how much do you need to learn to make it work. And we're obsessed about shaving configs, making things just easier to understand. That's a big thing. That's pretty much all I would say. But you'll find out about more on Twitter.
Yeah, I would love to. We have, one of the big themes that we keep saying is we play well with others, and I'd love to bring up our guests, Harkin and Dom, if you could come up here, because we're gonna break a world record as far as I know. We're gonna have the most agents SDKs on stage at one time, because you you both have an agent SDK. We have an agent SDK. And I think let's just talk about how do you define your agent SDK? You first.
Yeah, I wish we all got in a room before we decided to make agent SDK. Yeah, I think that and the word is still overloaded. I think like what is an agent? Is it like one to one? Can you have billions of them? Like if you fork a context, is that a different agent? Or like if you have two Cloud Code sessions, are those two different agents, or is it like your Cloud Code running? I think that our definition at Anthropic is really like an agent like Cloud Code. So Cloud Code, you talk to it and it does things, and there are guardrails, right? We have permission prompts and things like that, but it mostly just decides to do it. Like it's not being told like you have to lint, for example, but it's prompted and it has like the ability to use the bash tool to lint. So I think that's how we think about agents a lot, is like tools, oftentimes things like bash and constraints, and running for long periods of time. And I think that is what our agents SDK is, right? Is like that software that enables that to happen. I think that like there is obviously a lot of like different infrastructure needed when you're running a process that's running for like half an hour. Like I sort of feel like if you can run your agent in like serverless environment or something, it's not an agent kind of, like but like if it needs to respond in like 30 seconds, it's more of a workload. So I think that like that's how I think about the agents SDK. I like to use the comparison to like JavaScript frameworks because I think that's how I came up. And like I remember when we were deciding to build web apps, and Facebook had a web app, and you're like, oh, how do I make something like Facebook? And so when I think of the Cloudflare Agents SDK, I think of like Next.js or something, like a great way to like host these like rich React or like JavaScript frameworks. I think of us as like React. We're like very opinionated. We're like, you need a bundler now. Like, what is JSX? Like, I know you're using it. And like in the same way that it has to run in a sandbox, things like that. It's a little bit annoying, very powerful. And so that's how I think about us. And I think a lot of other agent frameworks, I think of a little bit more lightweight, like, hey, it's like jQuery or something. It's like you have a lot of control. There's minimal abstraction. But if you want to do something intense, like build Facebook, it's a little bit harder. And I think the big, thing about why I'm really excited about our agents SDK is that we build on top of like our agents are built on top of it, right? So you know that we're dog fooding it the same way that like Facebook dog fooded React, right? So yeah, that's how I think about it.
So, thanks. And Dom, how do you talk about your agents SDK?
I feel like first of all we need to do that like Spider-Man thing later. I think the interesting thing is more sort of like where the three different agent SDKs came from, because I think they all come from very different spots, right? So you clearly have like your origin in Cloud Code. For OpenAI, it was actually, how many of you heard of Swarm?
Yeah.
All right. So Swarm was basically our go-to-market team, our SEs, SAs, that were working with companies and wanted to provide like an educational way of like, here's sort of the patterns that work really well when building agents. And so we published that on GitHub, and it really took off, even though it wasn't meant to be like an SDK. And so the Agents SDK was like a natural evolution of that, where we took those same patterns, but this time actually shipped it not as like a sample repo that you download, but as an SDK that you can build on top of. And so a lot of the same principles still exist, where like the Agents SDK is supposed to give you the patterns of how we saw agents really work well. And like it goes back to our agent definition, which I don't think is too different, but like realistically, we think of an agent as a system that performs performs an action on behalf of a user, and it has typically like a model, a set of instructions, tools to perform the task, and a runtime to then actually execute that. And so if you look at our Agents SDK, it's intentionally very lightweight. There isn't a lot, like we're not trying to build a framework. You use the React analogy, so I guess we're jQuery. But like we're intentionally trying to keep it flexible. It works with any model. Like we put a lot of effort in making sure that it doesn't have to work with OpenAI. You can in Python use any model that's on LLM. For the TypeScript one, you can use anything that's the AI SDK, and it's fully open source. So if you want to help out, like Sunil did, we always welcome PRs. And so it's really more meant as like a way for us to share sort of the building patterns and make it really easy for you to get started and build agents that still scale to production. So we work with like companies like Temporal to make sure that you can actually run like your agents for hours or days and in a robust way. We worked with folks like the Cloudflare folks to make sure that it's really easy to deploy an agent like a voice agent in like a few lines of code. And so that's really sort of how we're approaching it.
Why don't you talk about how do you define yours?
Yeah, I like how we are talking about like origins of this, because it turns out durable objects were even in the code base, it was originally called an agent, and this is like way pre LLM stuff. And we then decided to pick the worst name and call them durable objects instead. But this idea of having these little autonomous compute and storage thing comes from its lineage of durable objects. It's a host, which is to say, like, if you look at a computer, is the hardware the computer or is the OS that runs on the computer? And I think the durable object tries to be the hardware, the place to like host your agents. I think that's actually our tagline on GitHub, a nice place to host your AI agents. And which is why we work very hard at not trying to be opinionated about how you build your agents. Like I said, bring your framework. But we kind of want to, because we hear from people, because we are a hosting company, I guess, they're like, we have all these programs that could potentially run for minutes, hours, days, weeks. How do we do it efficiently? How do we do it without breaking the bank? And it turns out we magically have this little host container that does it. So that's where our agents SDK comes from.
Do you have an operating system?
Kinda, yeah. Like because we have like the addressable hooks and the ability to hibernate, to go to wake up and go to sleep when no IO is happening. Yeah, it's actually closer to an operating system for agents. We should steal that idea and put it on the website. Yeah.
I think the good definition of what we're trying to do is like we are the where and how. And for example, Anthropic and OpenAI is what and why. And that's simply you use their toolkits or SDKs to use an agents SDK and host your agents and whatever capacity, whatever access you want. Yeah.
I know that we're seeing coding agents a lot, and we've built some together. I think that I would love to know, what are people building with your agents SDK that you would love to feel like this is so cool, right? You want people here to know and be inspired by that. If we can talk for that.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are like valuable use cases and fun use cases. I'll talk about both of them. I think like, yeah, obviously customer support is a big one. I think the thing with customer support is that it's a long tail of complexity and edge cases. And like what you hate is you're connected to an AI and then it's like, it asks you some questions and then it's like, okay, I'm going to connect you to a human, right? Like being able to handle the long tail of edge cases is very, very important. And you need to handle a lot of ambiguity. I think coding generation is actually a great way to do that. So that's like something that we're seeing. I think data is like the big other case, like the like databases, data observability, like business insights, things like that. These are all like very coding adjacent spaces, right? And yeah, I think like there's a lot of opportunity there, I think, to really transform how these people work. I think like, our finance team only uses Claude Code now, I mean, they're not like using like other, I don't even know which tools they would use. So, but yeah, and then like on the fun side, so, like I think there's some interesting stuff with games. I kind of want to make a demo which is like Claude Code plays Pokemon, where I give it access to the memory stack, and just let it like figure out what's happening, be like, oh, this is my party, like write a script to extract your party, write a script to navigate, right? And yeah. Yeah.
I think customer service is the thing that everyone's going to bring up.
Yeah.
I do think one of the things that is cool and sort of where I put a lot of intentionality in on like when I started working on the agents SDK is like being able to build the same agent regardless of whether you're building a voice agent or a text-based agent and being able to jump between those. So one of the things that I put a lot of energy into was with the TypeScript agents SDK especially. The Python one works similarly. There's a bit more wiring up you have to do. But the TypeScript one, you can use the same agent code to run in the browser and on the server in whatever way your server looks like. So one of the cool things is you can create the same agent definitions, maybe slightly different system prompt if you want to like steer the real-time speech-to-speech model. But then you can use the same tools, you can use the same guardrails, you can reuse a lot of that code and have the same agent essentially text-based wherever you want to on the phone or even in the browser via WebRTC, and you're using the same code, the same TypeScript types, and it really feels familiar. So that has worked really well with like a couple of customers where we've seen them be able to start off with a text one and really quickly switch to also shipping a real-time based one that they could talk to over the phone, for example, because like we also added, I don't think you've worked with that since we now have SIP support within real-time directly. So at that point, you don't deal with any audio processing anymore. That is all being handled directly between Twilio, whatever voice connectivity you have, and OpenAI. And then you just host a WebSocket server that just does like the tool calling essentially, or whatever event you want to listen to. But again, it's all the same SDK. So it's really easy to switch between all of these without having to change. And so that has been really cool to see.
Yeah, because WebSockets are so much easier with agents, customer support. I guess everyone wants to build a chatbot, and we provide a full-fledged backend for the AI SDK use chat hook with persistence, etc. all out of the box, and people like that, and they just start adding tools onto it. So customer support is a big one. A couple of fun ones are I implemented the final scene from War Games in with an agent where it plays tic-tac-toe against itself again and again, and it's like, oh, the only winning move is to not play. Then there's the guy who's built a drone that looks for colored walls and goes towards it, and he whacks at it with a bat in the name of AI safety. That's been pretty fun. What else have we seen?
Pretty sick personal AI agents. Funny enough, Steve on our team, he's implemented an incredibly comprehensive personal agent. It literally like orders food for his dog. It replies to job offers, not in a nice way. Thank God, good for me. But like, it's insane. I think the second, it's tricky for us because our agent SDK also has the MCP part, which gives it a whole different age. And we've seen that part being utilized like in a really cool way. We've seen some travel companies utilize it to completely redefine the way how you book something. And you can give it the context where like, I don't know, I need to book a car to get from A to B, but like I need my car at like 7 p.m. because I need to pick up my kid and then go somewhere. And you kind of send it in the messages you would send it to your partner, to your mother, or whatever. And then it just gives you, well, okay, this is your option. Should I book it for you? And like, that is great. I think we show some good onboarding agents. No one likes to fill the boring forms. And I recently saw a very cool agent when it's really asking me like 3 questions, and then my profile was like fully configured for everything I need. I think this is the really cool part. There's a lot of companies who struggle with onboarding, who struggle to make people start using the product. And I think that's where agents come and help you. The same like the search, we've seen search being redefined a lot with MCP in general. Whenever people ask the question in a dashboard or a question just in a search line, and the search doesn't just return the article, it returns the answer. That's kind of what we've seen the most, I'd probably say.
Yeah, MCP is huge, by the way, like so much MCP usage. It's also something everyone loves to hate. You know, like they'll use it, it's very useful, and they're like, I hate this is weird. Yeah.
I'm gonna do a little round of thank yous. So thank you for we built a thing. We have a sandbox, and we got to play with a Claude agent in our sandbox. Like right as it came out, it was super awesome. And I've been enjoying your hot takes on all you need is Bash. Can you dive a little bit into what you mean by that? Because I felt it when I built there.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so for context, I think probably the reason we have built the Cloud Agent SDK on top of Cloud Code is because we built Cloud Code and we saw all these people across Anthropic use it for many different non-coding tasks, right? And the secret to it is that it's just using Bash. Bash is, a way to control computers, right? It's a way to do anything on the computer. And so I think what we've done really well at Anthropic is that we really believe in AI getting better. I think you can look at our track record of like, okay, Sonnet 3.5 is going to be great at coding, and we think coding is going to be very, very important, right? Like MCPs, right? We're very early. Of course, yeah. Now people are like, I have 100 MCPs, and it's not very context efficient. I'm like, okay, well, when we first made the spec, it was a little bit, it wasn't so popular, right? So MCP skills, browser use, and computer use, right? We were all sort of very early to those emerging capabilities, and I think that's something we've done a really good job at. Bash is just like obviously the next thing to us, where like we think agents are going to get more and more general and simpler, and so Bash is like this way of exposing a lot of like interesting primitives right away, right? So I've seen someone regarding MCP, they've turned MCPs into like little CLI objects, which is kind of interesting, because when you call a CLI, you get like these, it can list the tools for you, right? And so you get this like for free, this progressive disclosure of tools, right? And so if you get creative, you can turn all of these like tasks into like Bash, and a lot of times the questions I get are like, how do I make sure my like AI agent gets better with the models, right? I hate like rewriting all the code. Well, I'm like, it's just going to keep getting better at Bash, right? And like, just like if you build it on Bash, you'll need to add a few guardrails, right? Like with Cloud Code, you still need to like have a human sort of interact with it. But that's like the foundation that I think about. It's like, hey, build it on Bash, and like then build your guardrails and your human interaction around it. And as the models get better, you'll need less of that over time. So, yeah.
And this is a thank you to you, Dom. You built some awesome patterns. I feel like you took these are the agentic patterns, and actually thank you to you as well for originally publishing those and then extending that. So if you're looking for a place to do those patterns, there's always really great reference examples. Is there a reference example? I'm off the top of my head. After looking at it, is there a reference example that you wish was out there where did they find it? Where did they find the reference examples to that?
I mean, most of it is like directly within the GitHub repos for both the Python and the TypeScript agents SDK. Again, they're fully open source, so you can reverse engineer whatever you want to. I think one of the patterns that maybe is like, it's crucial, but I feel like we talk less about it because it's not like the fun part. It's like the guardrail side, and like really thinking through, not necessarily just doing like input guardrails on like scanning whatever was put in and then running it through an LLM as a judge, but also guardrails around human approval and human in the loop for that might take a while, right? I think like one of the very validating things when I worked on the TypeScript agents SDK was I wanted to build human in the loop approval in a way that scaled because it was resumable, and it didn't matter how long it would take to respond, right? Like the server could go down as long as you have somewhere the state stored. Um, it's not the best pattern to like quick start, because now I'm going to talk to you about like, well, where are you storing the data, and like when are you going to deserialize it and bring it back, and how do you version your worker and other things like that. But I think it's so crucial because like we are still in the state of like people having agents where they want to have immediate gratification of like response came back. But like, what if you're running an agent that takes hours and you walk away, right? Like you want the agent to be able to pause when there's a critical thing where it violated a guardrail, for example, because it tried to hand off data to another agent that it's not supposed to. And like, you want to stop in that moment, adjust and fix it, but it might take an hour or two until you get back to it. So I think that's like a pattern that we have within it that I think like more people, it would be fun for more people to explore that. And I know Sunil was very excited when we brought that up.
I don't even think it's about critical points. There are some times when I just don't want to take a decision. I'm like, yeah, I'm just going for lunch. I'm not going to deal with this for a while. So yeah, having frameworks have inbuilt primitives for pausing, resuming, even like generating a little bit of a UI. So if you need a little more complex input from the user, would be like, it's been pretty good. Yeah, and thanks for putting it in the SDK.
I think let's try. I want to do this instead of clapping. We've been building stuff with these folks that are up here. Can we just say it out loud? Maybe like on a 1, 2, 3. Can we just say thank you? Like 1, 2, 3. There we go. That's awesome. Do we have any questions? Any questions out there? Yeah. Well, actually, I'm gonna. Can you project? You look like you can project. You got this. All right.
Talking through the agent roadmap, you have your data primitives. Something that you want to kind of build in, like you have SQLite in there. There's a lot of primitives in the Cloudflare ecosystem, but do you need like higher level data primitive?
Okay, so that's like 3 different questions. The first one is, I don't think we are happy with our implementation of the sync thing right now. It's way too primitive, and people try shoving like right now that state object can be a maximum of 2 MB in size, and people go over that very, very quickly. So I think we want to do something a little smarter. Also, because they are multiplayer by default, you kind of need conflict resolution like inside it. We do want file system, but I think we're going to attack it in a slightly different way, because we now have sandboxes that are full-fledged computers, which means there's a potential for building an agent from the agents SDK that actually runs on Bun inside there and communicates with the durable object version of the agent. So that has been a new capability that's been unlocked for us. Those sandboxes actually don't do persistence right now, but yeah, as a secret, yeah, we're going to ship persistence for our containers very, very soon. Oh, I'm so excited about that, huh?
Who knows what's to say?
Yeah, I like whatever. If this is what I get fired for, I'd be a legend on Twitter. It's fine. So yeah, like, so I don't think we're there yet. What we did was just a first take, and it seems to have brought us all the way where we are now. There's a bunch more to do ahead.
So the stuff you're saying related to, for instance, your state management, is there anything you want to provide in the runtime? You know, obviously when people are working with agents, you have like memory, sort of context retrieval.
We are. Yeah, I think memory was a good one, and we have something that we did a proof of concept for. Well, I guess it's open source. I can share it. So the way I was thinking about memory is, what if memory wouldn't be just the part of your one specific agent? Because there's so many agents, right? What if you, as a USB stick, can take memory and plug it into like your agent, like I don't know, Anthropic's agent, OpenAI agent, in any agent and you don't lose any context and you just keep carrying it. So I think we are working right now on this concept of portable memory. Like, what if you can just like make it pluggable to whatever? Yeah. So I think that's one of the things we're like actively working on. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
I have a pretty nerdy question.
So as you start to scale tools and MCP servers specifically, let's say you're up to 100 MCP servers, 2,000 tools, how have you begun to, A, keep it from spinning up all these servers and eating up context and tokens, and B, maybe there's like a simple search function where you could name the tools that have similar, say like search contacts features, maybe it's like Maripost search contacts or go high level search contacts. Have you played with any of those types of things? I'm about to engineer a solution. I'd like to save myself some time if you've already figured it out.
I'll actually let that Anthropic guy on this first, since, yeah.
Yeah, I think the MCP like programmatic tool use is a great blog post. I think I also challenge when people are using MCP or not, right? I think if you have full control of the agent end to end, it's not like originally MCP was developed for like Cloud Desktop and Cloud AI, and we want to create an ecosystem where anyone can connect to these agents, and we don't know what they're going to connect, right? So there's like a bit of a protocol there. But if you're building your agent end to end, you control the entire control flow. And so I would think then, like if you're on the order of like hundreds of tool calls, I would think about like, hey, make it a TypeScript definition, and then generate code against that. And yeah, just like execute the code, lint the code, things like that. Auth, like you probably have your own API keys. So it's a little bit independent, but if you genuinely need the hundreds of MCP servers because your users are using it, then yeah, I forgot what the blog post you guys put out was like the programmatic tool use is like a good way to do it.
It's called code mode. I'm wearing that.
Code mode, that's right. Yeah.
Oh, am I wearing agent?
Yeah.
Go on. Pointing.
It's so confusing.
Someone has, yeah.
Yeah. Code mode. There it is. Yeah.
If mine is available on the back table.
Yeah.
So I guess I'll stand here, but when I think about, I've used most of y'all's agents SDKs. When I think about like the split between the SDKs, I think of like Cloudflare's agent SDK as more of like a runtime environment for the agents versus like Anthropic and OpenAI is more of like abstractions over their like completions API or like chat API for Anthropic. I guess like where do you all see the border of that? And like I feel like there's kind of some ambiguity in certain cases where like agents for Cloudflare has some like MCP capabilities and some memory capabilities, and like you all have some like state management capabilities. I guess where do you all see those overlap, and where do you see the ownership of kind of those capabilities ending up?
All right. That's a fun question, I guess. I mean, it's a good question, but I think the way how we think about it is we want to stay very neutral in terms of what you can and cannot do. We will provide all the tooling on top of the primitives we have. So whatever it comes to hosting, you'll be able to do that. But we want to make sure that whatever choice you make in terms of your toolkit, in terms of your framework, no matter what that is, it still will work with Cloudflare. I think that's where we draw this like line and boundary. If at some point we'll become way too opinionated about how something works, I would say we fail at executing that strategy. But for now, I would say make it work with everything, whatever the choice. Because I think we'll see more of this. If everyone is coming out with the more agents frameworks, like every time I open Twitter, there's an agent framework. I think the goal is to just make sure that there's a common ground whenever people don't have to rewrite half of their code base whenever there's a new agent framework. Anything to add?
No, that's actually perfectly right. We just want to be a nice home for your AI agents.
I think for us, there's sort of definitely an interesting balance because, like, especially if you've used the responses API, it's at this point a very agentic API. Like, you can give it remote MCP, web search, a bunch of other capabilities, and like basically have an agent in a single curl request that can like run for like hours async, or not hours probably, but like it can run async. You can do all the things. So like for us, the Agents SDK, I think, is almost a way to really streamline bringing that into your code base in a way where it also works really well with others, right? Like, as I mentioned earlier, like we intentionally make sure that we support all of the other models so that like we know that you probably are not going to use like exclusively OpenAI models, because they're even with OpenAI models, like if you want to self-host like GPT OSS, you should be able to do that with whatever host you want, and then like combine that with like GPT 5.1, for example. So we want to make sure we have all the abstractions to combine that. But then there's also moments where I think we can improve the experience. So for example, with 5.1, it launched today in the API, and two new tools that we introduced were apply, patch, and shell to the whole bash thing. But the way we're doing it is it's special tool calls that we're going to return special events for. And so outside of that, you have to bring your own runtime, your own sandbox. We want to make sure that it's flexible enough for you to do whatever environment you want. If you want to have your own virtual file system, if you want to have your own sandbox bash, you can do that. But we're going to handle all of the like processing of the events and then calling like your class abstraction that we created for you. So it's really meant to be extremely lightweight, have zero, I think we're close to zero dependencies, and just flexible enough for you to make it really easy to adopt it. So it's one step further for like our regular SDKs are more like typed HTTP libraries, and then like the Agents SDK takes that further by actually implementing patterns.
Yeah, I think for us, I mean, Sunil's analogy at the start about kind of like Age of Empires discovering Fog of War, I think is very active. Like, I think we're still sort of figuring out how does the resource split go, and I think you guys all get a vote in that, right? Like, who do you give money to? I think that like, what would I trust Anthropic for more than anything, right? Like, I trust Cloudflare, for example, to host my like database and spin up billions of like processes and handle my WebSocket connections and all of these things, right? All of that infrastructure. I think what I would trust us for is our opinions on how to make like LLMs work with your perform their goals, basically. So programmatic tool use is a great example, right? Like, let's say that you spent all this time building up your agent framework and you've like figured out like how the exact amount of tools, and now someone's like, oh hey, like what if all of your tools were just code, and you're like, like I have to rewrite that now, right? Like, but you can imagine that like, we can handle that for you if that's the best practice, and we will decide when that's the best practice because we dog food our stuff, right? So I think maybe differently, we don't think of developer experience as the most important thing. Like, it's important, right? But the most important thing is capabilities and like making sure the performance is really, really good. And then once we figure that out, we'll make the developer experience feel good, but it's not the number one goal, right? And so, yeah, I think that's how I think about it. Just like, we're very opinionated about like how we think agents should run. So, yeah.
Awesome. We got one more question. All right, one more. Let's do it.
In these agents SDKs, do you have any primitives already or coming to control the context explicitly? Because the context of an agent is like, it's a key to having good responses. And I feel like it's kind of a black box. I don't know what's inside. I maybe want more control about it. Like, say, hey, process this, but don't extend the context, or this is very important, put this into your context, or is that something that's coming or we already have, or what do you think?
Who wants that?
Yeah, I think context management is a really good example of like, if I were you, I would use our opinions as strongly as possible, right? Because there's a lot of nuance here, right? Like a lot of times I see people wanting to change tools midstream, kind of, or like edit context earlier or something like that. And there is this trade-off of like prompt caching in context, right? And so you really need to find that fine line of like, hey, when do I inject a new user message or something like that, versus like when do I rewrite context? And all of this is sort of like an abstraction that we can help hide for you as well. Like, we still want to have primitives, but I think, context will change over time. Obviously, this year, the big way that context has changed is agentic search, right? So it used to be you have like, you try and fit as much as you can in one pass with RAG. And now it's like try and put as little as you can in the initial context and think a lot about the definition of your agentic search API, right? Like, how do you make that as intuitive as possible to the model, right? And make that very simple. So I think a lot of times with context, I try and push people to be simpler, not simple like in a easy way. Building simple things, I think, is really hard and really like difficult to do. And so I think it's a little bit of an anti-pattern when people have very complex context management strategies that mess with the cache or things like that. I think trying to find that like being in sync with the model, and I think our Agents SDK tries to enable that as much as possible.
Yeah, I think we're on the other end of that. Like, we've been keeping it intentional. Like, if you're ignoring voice agents, I think voice agents is a slightly different situation for us because our real-time API, like, we manage the real context for you basically as you're talking. And so like there's APIs that you can like manipulate that if you want to. But real time is like a slightly different story. For like traditional text-based agents, we give you all of the hooks to connect into whatever part you want. And control that. So like we have this agent handoff feature by default. Like if you're handing off to another agent, it takes over the entire context at that point. But then like you have what's called input filters where you can like kick things out if you want to, or control more like what is the part of the context you want to hand over. And then we have like the sessions concept where like it's again purely like a pattern that we give you, so that like, for example, you could have your own backend storage where you're then deciding what actually goes in, like you're getting a bunch of hooks and you can completely build that and customize it to your own experience, your own liking.
I see a lot of people using the analogy of if you're trying to write your program as one function that takes 1,000 arguments and like 20,000 lines of code, you're going to have a problem. And the way you break that is you make a bunch of different functions and you actually split it down. So I see a lot of people using sub-agents because it turns out context pollution ends up being just a place to keep all your inputs and outputs. And you can absolutely use a sub-agent for that and then get just a response back that you would like stuff into your context. So having a simple multi-agent framework or library or just helpers helps immensely when the weight of context starts like bothering you, I guess. That's the big one that I see happen a lot.
We want to actually do one more question.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Cool. First, just let me say thanks for Sonnet. That's a better coder than I was. Dota was one of the coolest things I've ever seen. Cloudflare, containers. I see the vision, loving it, loving where it's going. My question is really a request because we're doing video. It's a request for internal advocacy. If we could just get more network throughput, that's my question. Can you just be like, if we could just get like 40 times faster, from where it's at now, forever, we'll spend $100 million a year with you guys. I'd love to do it.
Okay, yes. The answer to your question is yes. Okay, cool, we'll do that.
It's so beyond my scope of understanding how these things actually get faster. Like, what's coming down the pipe?
No, I'm saying if there's $100 million customer, we'll make it happen, I guess. That's what I'm saying.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, let's give everybody a hand. They're going to be here for the rest. They're going to be here for a little bit, not the rest of the night. I almost made you stay all night long. To sit and hang out with and chat with, because I know there are more questions that maybe you didn't want to ask here. I want to say thank you to y'all for being here. That was awesome. We are all working together. Let's remember that we're all building together. So let's keep that going. Thanks everybody for coming tonight. We are always hiring. We're always hiring. So cloudflare.com/careers. And you all are hiring too, so talk to them about jobs that might be available and where to find those. Thank you everybody for coming. Appreciate you being here.